And welcome back to the Golf Intervention Podcast. It is a great day in Virginia. The snow has finally melted. People are playing golf again. It has been quite a stretch here for the last month, but we are excited to be talking golf performance today on the Golf Intervention Podcast. My name is Eric Layton. I am the Director of Golf Instruction at the Country Club of Virginia in Richmond, Virginia. I've been there for 19 years. And hopefully I'll be there another 19 more. Sitting here with my co-host, Rob Fales. He is player development leader.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, nailed it.
Wow, I think that's the first time. First time you've ever gotten around the first try.
See, people can learn.
That's right.
People can learn. At the Boar's Head Resort, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia, home of the number one ranked UVA men's golf team. Did I see that right?
Yes,
They're ranked number one
they are
right
ranked
now?
number one.
So cool. So you don't talk tons about the UVA team, although I know you work with some players on both the men's and women's team, and you're around them a lot.
Sure.
Birdwood, which is the course there at Boar's Head, is probably as good of a practice facility, university practice facility
it's hard to
in
beat.
the country. I mean, really fabulous. The team is really, really good, led by longtime coach Bowen Sargent, who's just a great guy and a great coach and a great player.
Yeah.
And he's got that program on track. I got to say, Bowen's been coaching them for probably 25 years
it's been a
now.
while,
I mean, it's been pretty close. No, I was at Farmington. He was there, and that's been 22 years. So anyway, I'm sure you have lots of good stories about golf performance and the great teams at UVA there. But today, we're going to start into a new series, which we talked about on our last episode, sort of the framework of our Golf Intervention 2.0, we're calling it. So trying to put some series together for the listener to try to organize and help you on your journey towards better golf performance. And our first series is going to be entitled Game Improvement Theory. Oh my gosh, so cool. So like we said last time, we try to see it through the lens, and hopefully the listener is picking up on this. We think that you can really basically improve in only three ways in golf, right? So there's strategy, there's skill, and there's swing. And there's buckets of stuff there. But what we're going to try to do with these series is pick a topic and then take you through the lens of strategy, skill, and swing through episodes. And then describe to you, the listener, a little bit of context about who you are as a player and how these topics can help you play better golf. So I think it's really cool, Mr. Fales, as we kind of go into what we're calling Golf Intervention 2.0, that we're sort of starting off with a series very similar to how we started off in 1.0 when we had absolutely no idea what we were doing.
Production quality's gotten just a tad bit better since then.
You should have seen, like, back in the day, I
gosh.
had pages and notes, and we'd like be emailing each other and we'd bullet points and we're writing stuff, and then we'd record and be like, that was terrible. And then we'd like trash it, do it again. But that's why practice happens. Right. Now we have like no notes. We're just like, we text each other a couple things. We're off and running. But it's good. And so, that first series on why golfers never improve, I can't remember exactly what we called it, but that was kind of it.
Why
we kind of took you through why golfers have a hard time improving or whatever it was. We took you through, 5 or 6 episodes about different stuff. And we kind of laid out a lot of these topics that we're going to talk about now. But I think it's interesting, it's not going to be the same discussion. As someone who teaches and learns all day long, there's going to be a different discussion, right? Because people evolve. Yeah, coaches evolve. I saw there was this big kerfuffle, we'll call it, on social media with somebody trying to call out an instructor because of something he said in a video 12 years ago. Did you see this?
I did,
It was so ridiculous. And the point is, if you're someone who teaches probably anything and you're still teaching the exact same thing 12 years later, then you're probably not learning anything and you're not growing and you're not doing your students a service. So you should be learning and you should be evolving. I don't think what we're going to say is all that different, but I'm just saying we're constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to tell the story a better way. That's what teachers do. That's how you grow and you improve, right? So we're excited to take this topic on, again, slightly different way, but similar to how we started the golf intervention. So I'm really fired up for tonight's show. We're recording a little earlier than normal, which is kind of fun. Maybe we'll have a little more energy to get this episode out. And so on today's show, we're going to take you through the strategy piece of golf improvement. Okay, so golf improvement theory and then the strategy piece of that. So strategy is, I think, something we were talking just before we came on. Strategy is something we would define it as non-invasive in a lot of ways. We would define it as, you could define it as low-hanging fruit in a lot of ways. You could define it as something golfers never think about or understand. For me, a long time in my game, I didn't really understand it. All I ever tried to do was just hit the ball better and hope my scores added up better.
Yep.
The idea of, like we all start that way. But I think that now we have data. Data has really driven sports performance at all levels, and golf is not immune to that. So today we're going to talk some data for sure. Like, this is going to be a data-driven episode. We have some numbers in front of us that we talk about when we kind of contextualize the player that we're speaking to. Some of what we talk about today it's like a blanket to everybody that plays golf should have some of this stuff. But then there is slight tweaks between the level of golfer. So when we talk strategy, Rob fails, and we're like with a student and they're looking to improve, and maybe they say something like, I need a playing lesson. This is what I get a lot, which I think is right. Yeah. I mean, it's really the place where you introduce it. Yeah. And they say, I need a playing lesson because I don't really know what I'm doing. And that's where this comes in, right? Isn't that where you see this? So where do we start with strategy?
Yeah, 100%. So I think we're going to probably be doing this in a lot of our episodes, honestly, because I think it's never a bad idea to hear it multiple times, but it all starts with who you are as a golfer, right? So thanks to, and this originally came from GameForge, but thanks to some metrics that we have, we can basically take the levels of golfer and tell you pretty much what metrics are going to be most highly correlated with your improvement. All right, so we say level 1 golfers shooting higher than 88. There are pretty much only 2 stats we say that you really need to keep track of as a level 1 golfer. Again, if you're averaging higher than 88, take your total score and then subtract your total putts, right? So you're going to keep track of your total score and your total putts, and then by subtracting your total putts from your total score, you're going to get another metric, which is called shots to green. All right, so it's basically the number of times that you make an intentional swing from all of the tee boxes until the ball gets on the green. So shots to green for a level 1 golfer to get to the end of level 1. So from a beginner golfer all the way down to you averaging 88, you're going to be looking at getting all the way down to 52 shots to green on average. So if you start to track your score, again, take your score, take your total putts, right? Subtract your total putts from your total score. Ask yourself, hey, am I in the ballpark of 52? Am I 53 or 54? Or am I all the way up at, 57, 58, 59, 60? You're going to want to also be in the ballpark of about 36 putts, total putts for that round of golf. So again, for who you are, just take a look and say, hey, where's the bigger difference, right? And just keep in mind that as we kind of move through this is that generally speaking, the shots to green number comes down at a faster rate than the total putts come down, right? So to get you from, I don't know if faster rate is the correct term there, but to get from level 1 all the way down to level 4, right, you're going to have more of a difference in the shots to green than you are going to have in the putting. So just keep that in mind, and you'll see this kind of as we move through that. But shots to green and total putts, we're going to talk more about where those shots to green happen and why they get inflated for level 1 golfers. But just know that those are the 2 stats that you pretty much need to keep track of. You're looking for, 52, low 50s shots to green, and then mid to high 30s for total putts. Okay. So once you get to level 2, now these golfers are averaging from 88, so entry level 2, all the way down to 76, right? So the end of level 2, you're averaging 76, which is a huge bucket of golfers, we say all the time. And what really moves you down that scoring bracket is really going to be, again, it is technically still shots to green, but it's more specifically your greens in regulation. So it's the number of times that you stop the ball on the green in 2 less than the par value throughout a round of golf. Entry level 2 golfers are about 6 greens in reg. And then the end of level 2, shooting 76 on average, it goes all the way up to 10, which is huge. That's a big difference in greens and reg. And just to show you all the difference in here, the end of level 2 golfers they've got about 32 putts. So just think about that. Like we went from 36 for end of level 1 to 32 putts end of level 2. That's only 4 putts. That's only 4 shots different on the green. From 88 all the way to 76, it's only 4 putts different. Again, most of that is shots to green, and more specifically, the greens in regulation, getting on the green in 2 less than the par value. So on a par 5, getting on the green in 3 shots or better. All right. Level 3, these golfers are shooting from 76 to 72. And again, now the game starts to change a little bit, right? To get you from 76 down to 72, not only is it greens in regulation, but this is where birdies start to become a thing. And actually making some birdies starts to become more important for your score. So we track what's called in positions, which is basically when the ball is on the green in regulation, but less than 20 feet from the hole, right? So these golfers are looking to get in the 6 to 7 range in terms of their in positions. Total putts down to 32, 31. All right, it's kind of what we're looking for. So again, how different is that? Not that much different. It's like 1 putt better, really. Right? It's 1 putt better, but again, you're getting some birdie looks, you're getting some birdie opportunities, and you're cutting down on those shots to greens still. I would expect the greens in regulation number here to be closer to 11 to 12, really, right? So again, reducing shots to green, but it's really, yes, it's greens in reg, but it's really those birdie opportunities when you're inside 20 feet. All right. And then level 4, which we actually introduced I'm not sure exactly when we introduced the level 4 concept, that you actually brought this up. And I thought it was a great point, because tour players, trying to say that a tour player should be in the same bucket as someone averaging 76 that's not a thing. They are different, right? So in positions go up to about 7 to 8 range, and then they are less than 31 putts. Right. So again, they do the same things the level 3 golfers need to do, but just better.
So this is a beautiful example. Colin Morikawa this weekend. So this is why we can't lump them together when we say they're not human. Colin Morikawa, and I didn't watch Pebble. I don't watch tons of PGA Tour these days, but just because I'm busy. But on Sunday, I guess I was in the middle of the day. I had a few minutes, turned the TV on in between what I was doing. And Morikawa was maybe on the 15th or 16th hole. And he played Pebble. Did you follow the tournament at all, Robbie?
A little bit.
Okay. So he played Pebble back-to-back days. They do the rotation of courses, but he played Saturday, Sunday on Pebble. Yep. Very windy conditions off and on, like extreme wind, right? He made a putt on that, whatever hole I was looking at. Dottie Pepper says, that's the first putt of any significance in distance he's made in a couple days, is what she said, something like that. Okay, I'm like watching. He birdied 18 of the 36 holes on the weekend. Let me say that again. He birdied 18 of the 36 holes at Pebble Beach on the weekend in blustery cold conditions. And Dottie said he made 1 putt of significant length. So what does that say? Colin Morikawa was hitting it inside ridiculously well. Ridiculous. He's always been a great iron player, right? Like he's as good as there is. But the point is, that is not human. Like if you drop a scratch golfer at 50 degrees and blowing sideways on Pebble Beach and play him 36 holes in front of a crowd, what are they going to shoot? And he's making 18 birdies. So you had Scotty Scheffler making 3 eagles in one round, shooting 62 or 3 or whatever. Yeah. So, and they do it because they to your point, they hit the ball way better. So the notion that, drive for show, putt for dough, all this old stuff, like spend all your time practicing your putting because that's what's going to make you great. It's just not. It just isn't reality, right? They're better putters, and the better you get at golf, you're going to be a way better putter. But where they separate themselves is their ability to hit the ball better. So that those swings, right? Those shots to green, So even chips and bunkers and pitching and all those shots, they're
For
just,
sure.
anyway, I think it was an amazing
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, this is why we
illustration.
don't just look at shots to green, because if you look at a level 3 golfer into level 4 golfer, like, that's kind of like where it crosses over, where, like, to get better after level 3, if you just looked at those two, you would say, oh, that's when putting becomes more important than ball striking, because they're not actually, the shots to green and the putts are coming down at about the same. And then even probably from level 3 to level 4, you're going to see them get better at the putting relative to the shots to green, right? So if you just
Right.
looked at those two stats, then you would say, oh, well, then once you become a tour pro, it's all about, well, it's not really. Because if you look at, it's the proximity, really. It's like, how many opportunities do they have inside 20 feet? And that's really what's driving those, the birdie looks.
Yeah.
And so that's really, even for the tour pros, it's how do I hit it better? How do I get more birdie looks inside 20 feet? Which is going to continue to improve the elements of strategy, skill, and swing.
But I would also add to that, which I totally agree with. They're playing way harder and way longer golf courses.
Yes.
Like when you're looking at GameForge data, which is great, this is people like you and I collecting our data and putting it in there, like, the people that we teach, right?
Yep.
And then there's tour player data, and there's all kinds of data. But what I'm saying is, if you're playing on the tour, you're playing firm greens, fast greens, 7,500 yards, plus there's crowds there and you're on television, you're playing for your life, you add all that stuff in, and then to still be able to produce that under all of that, it's outrageous. Yeah, it's just outrageous.
But that is kind of, again, like, that's the context behind it. Who are you as a golfer? What metrics are you trying to drive to get better? That's going to be the genesis of everything that we do. Now, this series is going to be on game improvement theory. And like we've said in the past, each episode is going to highlight, when it comes to the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 golfers, strategy, skill, or swing. So today we're talking about strategy. And like Eric said, it is lower hanging fruit. It's lower on the invasiveness scale, right? If there's maybe a better way of saying that. But really, no one's really getting worse by improving strategy. That's why it's such a good thing to do first, especially if you're the coach listening. If you can improve their strategy first, and if the opportunity is there, then we would highly recommend you do that. And the considerations are going to be a little bit different for the golfer that you have in front of you, obviously, in what level they are. But it's just it just doesn't get thought of a lot in teaching circles around, like, what's the first thing to look at? Like, a lot of people say, like, look at the grip, like, look at your posture, look at your geometry of your swing. Like, no, like, let's assess their strategy. Like, what are they trying to do? Which really starts with the dispersion. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on this. This is going to be, again, something that we'll keep coming back to. But are you aiming a dispersion or are you aiming a sniper rifle? Is really kind of the first key consideration. That if you have a golfer in front of you, you don't have to get on the golf course for them to understand this. This can be very much some of the first things that you talk about with a golfer, because whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, every shot they're judging when they go out and practice. Hey, they're going to take their large bucket of golf balls or go onto the range, and they're just going to hit some balls, right? You take your average club player. And they're always judging after every shot, whether they like to admit it or not. So are you judging it based off of, was this perfect or not? Or are you judging based off of, was this inside my dispersion or not? And those are two very different things. Golfers oftentimes will go out and aim their perfect shot when they go play. Right? This is the shot that I should be able to hit, which is very different than aiming the 80-ish of 100 shots that you're going to hit. Right? So the first key to understand is, are you aiming your dispersion, or are you aiming basically the top 1% of your shots? So what is a dispersion? We have actually on our Substack, I think it's, like you said, Eric, in our last episode, I think this was a member exclusive thing. And I do want to keep that member exclusive for sure. So go visit our Substack if you want to learn more about the specific finger dispersions. But the general idea is you're going to be able to, on the golf course, aim this window. Well, what is that window exactly? Well, hopefully many of you are familiar with a bell curve. Right? So the bell curve, we can basically divide up into a couple different segments. Looking at it from starting from the left, you have your bottom 16% of shots, right? These are the shots that are going to be big misses. Big miss on the club face pointed way out, club head speed not in the desired window. 16%, again, you hit 100 shots, 16% of them are going to be big misses outside of your dispersion. Then you have the middle 68%, right? And divided up into bottom 34 of the middle, then top 34 of the middle. These are all going to be pretty much your average shots, some a little bit better than average, some a little bit worse than average. And then finally, on the far right, you're going to have your top 16% shots. These are I absolutely flushed it, face was pointed right where I wanted, all kinds of good stuff like that. So really, if we add in the middle and then the top end of your dispersion, right, that's going to give you 80, Eric, help me, mental math. 68 plus 16 is going to be 82.
It's 82. Yeah.
There we go. 82.
84.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
68.
Yeah, you're right, sir. Whoops.
Math is hard.
Math is hard on a live podcast, everyone. Give me a break.
We're not mathletes here, okay?
I haven't done quick mental math in a long time. Anyway, really the 84% of shots is really what we're trying to aim here. All right. So really, if the ball ends up in your dispersion, that's going to be one of the 84% of your shots. So our big rule here is, right, we want to be able to aim that so that we're taking on the appropriate amount of risk. And there's been a lot of interesting studies done about like the sweet spot for risk. And it always tends to come around like that 80-ish% mark. Like basically if you had 5 shots, if you can pull it off 4 out of 5 times, then it's probably worth it, right? You're willing and able to give up that 1 out of 5 so that you get the benefit of the 4, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what we want to be aiming. Everyone's dispersion is going to be a different size. And that's really what improvement is. It's not about taking away the dispersion. It's about making the size of the dispersion smaller. Understanding that as for you as a golfer, you need to figure out how big does that dispersion need to be so that you're hitting essentially 80% of your shots inside of that zone. And then within that is what you're going to aim on the golf course, right? We say there's really 4 different games within the game, if you will, when you play golf. You have driving, you have approach play, you have short game, and you have putting, right? So there's really, when you talked about like using finger dispersions, we use it in putting too with aim point, but for driving and approach specifically, right, and a little bit of short game depending on the golfer, really these opportunities to aim your dispersion, which depends on what we say your decision tree. So the dispersion is what you're aiming. But the decision tree is really your process for figuring out, hey, where am I going to place this dispersion? Where am I going to aim the center of my dispersion, right? For driving, really the number one goal and by the way, this is for all golfers. This isn't just this decision tree does not just apply for level 1 golfers or level 2, level 3.
No.
Right? The beauty of this is that as your dispersion gets smaller, you end up being able to work yourself through the decision tree further. But if your dispersion is really big, most shots, you might only be able to satisfy the first requirement, the first priority of the decision tree, right? Which in driving, it's just getting the ball in play, right? And I include having a clear path to the green with that, right? So can you find your golf ball with a clear path to the green without penalty, right? And we can include, we'll talk about disruptors here in a little bit, but really that's the number one goal for driving. So notice it's not fairway, right? It's just getting the ball in play to where you can find it with a clear path to the green from there. Eric, you and I go back and forth a little bit, but really, as far as I see it, for most, if not all golfers, there are some exceptions depending on the course that you play. If the rough is really, really, really bad and you're very low speed. So that would be maybe the caveat to this. But the second priority of driving is going to be proximity. So how close can you get your golf ball to the green, right? And that's going to be like, hey, can I get the ball in play? How far down there can I get it? Right? That's going to be kind of the second priority. And then after that, if you can get a couple more shots in the fairway, then you can kind of slide your dispersion over to get a couple more golf balls in the fairway. But that's driving, right? Before we move on, Eric, did you have anything you wanted to add to
I was just going to say there's geometry involved all kinds of ways in this because it's not necessarily that everybody who's a level 1 golfer has slower club speed than a level 2 but
correct.
There is a correlation at times, right? Like the better the very highest level golfers have pretty darn good club speed, unless they're playing forward tees, right? So point being, the slower my swing speed is, the harder it is for me to hit it out of the fairway. Okay, because just think about angles and geometry, and I don't know, just think about that as you go 300 yards 4 degrees offline versus going 120 yards carry 4 degrees offline. A lot of times you're going to be in the fairway, right? But you need to try to strategize for that a little bit if you have really slow club head speed, because getting it out of the rough is really hard. It can almost be a disruptor for some with those lower club head speeds. So you just kind of have to know thyself a little bit there. But I do think that, like, even looking at your data, it's not like tour players are hitting tons more fairways than level 1 golfers. They're really not. It's a few.
They're not.
No, they hit way more greens and they hit it way closer on the green, but they don't really hit more fairways because they hit it so blessed far that, again, 2 degrees offline could be in the rough. Whereas, depending on how they're aiming it or the hole or whatnot, but if I've got slow club head speed, I can hit a lot of shots that stay in the fairway that don't.
For sure.
They're not booming and they don't, but they're in the fairway. So anyway, yes, I think that, to your point, I agree with you. It's like, get it in play and get it down there. And that even includes, the slower.
Yeah, because I think most of the time, an exception for some rare cases, like if that golfer who, when they hit in the rough, is getting really penalized because of their club head speed because the ball's in the rough, it's like, well, that's also the same golfer that if they just hit it further and learn to swing it faster, like that's not as much of a thing for them anymore. Right. So like, even for that golfer, we would probably prioritize like, no, we're not going to spend a bunch of time for this golfer getting them to necessarily hit it straighter. We're going to teach them how to hit it further. So then getting it in the rough isn't as penalizing you. Right.
Correct.
So that's driving. And I'm a big believer in driving as, if not one of probably the most important aspect of the game. Because when you look at it, when you go from level 1 all the way through level 4, it's like improving at driving it makes the entire game and makes kind of achieving the metric that you're going for just that much easier. So many penalty shots, so many disruptors, which I guess this would be a good time to talk about disruptor. It's basically a penalty without necessarily being technically a penalty, right? So let's say you hit it in the trees and then you have to chip out, right? So that chip out, even though it's not a penalty by the rules of golf, might as well be one, because you're not improving necessarily you are improving the position of the ball, but again, it's not much. You're having to take an added shot without advancing the ball, much closer to the hole. So things like tops, chunks, balls way off the edge of the toe or the heel, and then sometimes big face to path stuff where the ball's curving way out of bounds. Those are all going to be, well, out of bounds would be a penalty area. But like if you were to really hook it into somewhere where you'd have a hard time playing it from, but could still play it out of, that would be a disruptor. All right. So essentially, like, effective penalties would be a good way of saying that. So like, even for level 1 golfers, so many of those penalties and disruptors and added shots to green are happening off the tee. I see it a ton, right? For level 2 golfers, like, you need to drive greens and reg. Well, how do you drive greens and reg? Is usually having less than a 6-iron in and regulate for your shot in regulation. So again, that's improving driving. For tour pros, it's just going to be improving that proximity is going to be so huge. So again, driving kind of has an amazing trickle down throughout the entire game. And I've said before, if I ever were to specialize and be, a coach of only one aspect of the game, I think driving would probably be it.
Whoa, okay.
Because I think you could have the most like widespread benefit to it, all golfers really, right? So that's driving. Approach. Now, as we start to work into really the shot that is approaching the green, and this would include going for it for par 5s. Number 1 is still very much like driving, getting the ball in play. So that's the number 1 goal. Again, this does not mean 100% of your shots should be in play, by the way. It's just 80% of your shots. We want you to pick a target so that 80% of these shots are in play, not 100. Because again, if I were to aim somewhere to get 100% of my shots in play, now I'm being so conservative that when I hit my best ones, I'm not really getting a benefit out of. So we want you to get a benefit out of the best shots. So 80% of shots in play. Number 2 is going to be getting the ball on the green. All right. And then if there's still room on either side of your dispersion, meaning if your dispersion's tight enough and or if you're close enough to the green to where you can slide your dispersion now closer to the pin while keeping your entire dispersion on the green, that's going to be priority number 3, and that's going to be your eventual target. So really, we want you aiming as close to the pin as possible while keeping 80% of your shots in play and on the green. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be approach. Short game, we're going to go ahead and say it's kind of understood. Yes, like getting the ball in play with your short game shot is important. But we're going to say like number 1 is to get the ball on the green. And this,
right.
I think this gets glazed over way too much when you even talk into like level 3 players. I see level 3 players, especially end of level 2 players, entry level 3 players, really get tripped up by this. Is because far too often those like end of level 2 golfers, beginning level 3 golfers are taking on shots where if you truly looked at it, less than 80% of the shot that you are taking on is getting on the green. All right. So getting on the green's number 1, and then proximity to hole is going to be number 2.
And we're talking about, just to define the short game.
Thank you.
We'd say 40 yards and shorter than 40 yards. Right?
Yep, 40 yards and in. Yep, agree.
And that's for most people. I mean, if you're some people, I would give it 30 because they're just club speed is just not quite there. But I would say as a rule of thumb, it's shorter than 40.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with you on the missed green thing. And I think the data from, which I do not have in front of me, but if you're off the green, just off the green versus on the green, the expected outcome is crazy different. And so I think that strategy is really it still does play onto the next, like each shot is getting you in position for the next shot. That's why a disruptor takes you out of position, right? Like I'm not in position for the next shot. So if I'm off the green, I got it. And to your point, like, especially as I'm working through the levels, my skill, which we'll get to in another episode, isn't quite as good, meaning I don't control the shot as predictably or I can really change the shot height or whatever, the spin. So therefore I have to be more conservative. And then as I'm getting, as I'm Tiger Woods, I can get less conservative, right? Tiger's like, no, I'll hit it over the back of that hole at the Memorial, and then I'll miss the green from 20 yards, and then I'll pitch it in from 15 yards because I'm Tiger Woods, and you can't do that. But
no, I mean,
mere humans
truly
got to get it on the green.
100%. Yeah, like dispersion is a fluid thing. That's really the beauty of aiming it this way is that there are some days where your rhythm just feels impeccable, and it's like, what, I've got quite a bit more predictability over what's going on, and it's okay, like if you're feeling good today, to narrow this in a little bit. And then vice versa, there are days where just like the grip feels weird, like it feels weird in your hands, you're just kind of in a fog, like you're not really focused, you're not really present, and it's like, what, like on those days, it's okay to spread that thing out a little bit. And there are environmental situations that change the dispersion too, like into the wind, increases dispersion, downwind, decreases dispersion. In the rough, makes it bigger, fairway. Typically, it's going to be your stock and it'll be your standard. So like things like that, like that's where the feel comes in as a player, especially with aim point. People say all the time, like, oh, like, aim point is taking the feel out of it. But like it couldn't be further from the truth. So much depends on those little like environmental adjustments to things like how far your fingers are away from your face, where on your fingers you look. Like there's so many. When you're using fingers to target, so much of it is feel. So much of it is your awareness as a player and kind of where you're at. But yeah, that's short game. Anything had to add there for short game?
No, I would say one thing I have definitely done some like definitions of these terminologies, of the terminology that we use right early on. There was like, what is a disruptor? You did a whole post on some of those terminology stuff. We did an episode on the finger dispersions. So finger dispersions we keep bringing up, but it's like a way that you use your hands to triangulate over space to create a pattern, right? And basically based on who you are as a golfer, your ability to control that either narrows or it widens, right? And then this brilliant way to use it, and there's other strategy systems. They use a lot of them use math, right? And they're mathing all day long, but the math is so distracting to me. And so just being able to use your fingers to triangulate, just like, somebody would do to try to judge when the sun is going to go down.
Yes.
So as an example, the target green that we hit at all day out of my teaching bay is 171 yards slightly downhill, right? And so when I'm showing people tour player dispersion, just to give them a for instance, it looks to me, and I should go out and measure it someday. It looks to me like it's probably 17 feet right and 17 feet left of the flag, I would guess, from 170. Does that sound about right? I don't know what the math is. I would say it's probably somewhere. So 35-foot dispersion.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be, so it's going to be, again, if we talk about average dispersion, it's going to be in the 8-ish% range.
Okay.
So take 170. So 10% would be 17 yards. So less than, so we're talking about, I don't know, quick, no more mental math on this episode, but probably
call it 14 yards.
14 yards-ish, somewhere there.
Yeah, that's 42 feet.
Yeah, 42
so
feet.
I'm not far. I said 35. Like, I'm just guessing, right?
Yeah,
I was just guessing.
That's about right.
So think about that. So you're at 170 yards, 40, call it 40 feet is the dispersion. It's 20 feet right, 20 feet left.
Yeah.
From a tour player. Guess what they're hitting from 170 yards, people? They're hitting 9-iron.
Yep.
Okay.
8, 9. Yeah.
So here we are hitting 7-iron
Yep.
or whatever. This is why when you talk about game improvement theory,
Yes.
there's a lot of layers to this that you start to unravel.
Absolutely.
Right? And if I can have a shorter club in my hand, this goes back to your tee shot thing. If I can have a shorter club in my hand, my ability to tighten the dispersion is more because I put less side spin on the ball with a club that has more loft. It's just the way that it works, right? And it's a shorter shaft, so I'm standing closer to the ball. Contact becomes a better. So anyway, that's skill stuff. But point being, it all sort of builds one to the other as you go up through the levels, right? And you stand there and you think, my goodness, they're hitting pitch a wedge from here and I'm hitting 6-iron. No,
Yes.
I mean, but that's kind of, for some people, that's the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just a very eye-opening thing when you start to calculate it, but it also gives you the visual to work off of where you're like, oh my gosh, I can see how that plays out.
Yes.
Right. And I didn't mean to cut off your train of thought there, but I was just like, it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening when you start doing it, for sure.
100%. Yeah. And then finally, right, working into putting, right? So really with putting, there's two main considerations, right? Is you move through how far your ball is away from the hole, right? So really it's going to be, are you going for proximity? How close can the ball stop to the hole? Or are you trying to convert it? Are you trying to roll it in? And again, this is very much player dependent, right? So we'll get into this a little bit more in our putting series because we will be doing a putting series. But really, for level 1 golfers, it's probably 10 feet. Kind of where like the cutoff is. I'd say entry level 1 golfers, people who haven't putted before, it's probably closer to like 6 feet, to be honest.
So let's describe that a little bit. So at 10 feet, and Jack Nicklaus said this, I believe, too. At 10 feet, he would say I'd start lagging was his term. And what we would say is,
you actually say that? That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, what we're saying is center of dispersion is going to be the middle of the hole.
Correct.
At 10 feet and longer, relatively.
For
So
level
it
1
could be
golfers,
uphill, downhill.
Or apparently Jack.
Well, I think he said 10 feet.
Yeah.
I could go back and look.
Yeah,
I
that'd
have
be
to
cool.
look it up. But maybe he was saying for beginner golfers, it should be 10 feet. I'd have to find the context. But point being, you're not trying to ram it past the hole. So the point is, if you try to hit it past the hole from 20 feet every single time, putting your center of dispersion past the hole, you're going to bring in way more 3 putts without making more 1 putts.
Right.
So therefore you're losing there. Now people will argue with you with this till they're blue in the face. Like, this is one thing that people, I think, don't believe me when I'm teaching them this. It's like, no. Like, you don't have to hit it past the hole at 20 feet. You can leave it 2 feet short and be really happy with that putt, right? Because you're going to 2-putt.
For sure.
And he's trying to give them the stats and their eyes glaze over and they're like, my dad told me I have to hit it past the hole or I have to do 10 push-ups.
Yes.
You're like, okay, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hitting it always past the hole isn't actually the goal. And really good putters will tell you that. Brad Faxon doesn't try to do that. It's the best putter I've ever seen, unbelievable putter. And he'll tell you he tries to, quote unquote, die it at the hole every time. So he's saying, center of dispersion is at the bottom of the hole, essentially, right? He's trying to stop his ball right there. He's not trying to run it past. But as you get on short putts, you do want to run it past. You do want to have a little bit more speed because you never want to leave it short. These are the putts that you actually can make, right?
Totally.
And so you're saying over level 1, 2, 3, 4, those numbers can change a little
Yes.
bit as far as when you feel like you're quote
For
unquote lagging versus trying to get it past the hole.
Like the data would suggest like level 4 golfers for tour players is like a little over 30 feet.
That's interesting.
And they would actually,
That's further
what's
than
very
average.
interesting, they would putt better if they moved it closer to the hole. If they got to actually at 30 feet, they would actually putt better. So tour players are actually a little bit suboptimal in their strategy for putting based off of the data that we've seen. It's like even at 30, they're still trying to roll it past a little bit, and they would actually putt better if they didn't. Again, that's big data over like every single tour pro taking a look at what's going on. So that's pretty much the range. Like level 1, entry level 1, 6, end of level 1, 10 feet. Once you get to level 2, like that's where it kind of floats into like the 12 to 18 foot range to 20 foot, depending on where you're at in level 2. And then again, like tour pros, they're out closer to 30 as when they go from trying to convert to trying to lag it. And it is a little bit putt dependent too. Like if you're a level 3 golfer and you're standing over a 12 footer and it's straight downhill across a 4% slope, then you might say, you know what, on this particular putt, I just feel better about trying to lag it. And there are processes that we have that involve taking the most break that you can possibly take to try to account for that. But with so much of that, again, that covers basically the element of strategy that is going through the decision tree based off of your dispersion, right? It's really what are you trying to do here, right? There's a whole other element of strategy that is answering the question of how you're going to do it. Because you can take everything that we've said today and apply it to a Google map. You could map out a golf course with Google. Let's say you played a hypothetical round and you put the golf balls exactly where they ended up. You could go through this decision tree that we just laid out for you with a driving, approach, short game, and putting on Google Maps. What you couldn't do, however, is make the necessary adjustments for how the environment is going to change what the ball's going to do, right? And there's a couple things to keep in mind here. We talk about the lie, which is basically the surface the ball is resting on. Is it in the rough? Is it in the fairway? Is it in a bunker? What's the medium that the ball is sitting in? We say lie. Then there's slope, right, which is what the ball is resting on, whether it's uphill, downhill, ball above your feet, ball below your feet. Where the ball is landing, right? So the ball could be landing above where you are or below where you are, and the surface that it's landing on and rolling across, right? When it lands, is it landing on a side slope, or is it landing uphill, downhill, or is it rolling across a side slope, uphill, downhill? A lot of this, looking at each of those slopes individually, is going to be probably most important for short game and your shorter approach play. But those are going to be really the environmental factors. It's the lie and the slope, and then finally is the weather, right? Which includes wind, which includes things like temperature, humidity, elevation, like all the weather stuff that can change what the golf ball is doing is another part of the equation. So you have what are you trying to do, which is kind of like the decision tree and your dispersion, and then the how you're trying to do it. That's kind of making your adjustments for lie, slope, weather. And that's pretty much it. Like that's all of the conscious decisions that you're making on the golf course. And you can kind of picture this, like when you're going out to play, you're going to pick a target and then you're going to make your environmental adjustments. And that is strategy. Pretty much, can we get you better by improving those very, very conscious decisions before you swing the club back, right? That includes things like club selection, all of that stuff. Pretty much once the club is swinging back, or I should say even like a little bit before the club is swinging back, pretty much before you walk into the shot, basically, what are the things that you can quote unquote control, right? And that's why a lot of people have success with working with strategy. It's because it is more under your control. Like you can control those conscious decisions, right? Once you're walking in and once you take your looks and when that club starts swinging back, it's skill or swing. It's going to be one of those two, right? And it's trying to figure out, hey, what's going to move the needle the fastest for the golfer. And what we're saying is that there's a lot you can get done before you start walking into the shot, right? And that's strategy.
It's essentially all the things you hear the players and the caddies talk about.
Exactly.
It's essentially all it is. I mean, essentially it is. And over time, strategy has been more quantified, like we're talking about, right? It's been understood better with TrackMan has helped a lot on this. It's helped with the adjustments for altitude and wind and, temperature of the day, and also understanding dispersion patterns and where you should aim. All that's come together because of this data that we've gotten. And this is why I think back in the day, when Tiger Woods came on the scene and he said he was going to try to win every tournament he played in, and the old timers kind of scoffed at him, like, you'll see, like I think what they were saying is it takes a lot of time to understand the strategy, whether that's what they meant or not. Do you quote unquote learn the golf courses? Do you quote unquote understand, where the mountain is that all the putts break to?
Yeah.
But this is all that stuff that they, and Tiger just came in and nuked it all, right? Like he just destroyed all of it. And his strategy was just way better than everybody else's, right? He just understood this stuff. We should probably do a series on Tiger. I keep saying this. We've learned so much from Tiger. We should just do the Tiger series.
Yeah, I like that.
So point being, if you're someone listening to this that shoots in the 90s, you're probably not thinking to yourself, wow, do I need to think through all the stuff I see Scotty Scheffler talk to his caddy about before he plays? The answer is no, not necessarily. I mean, not to the level that he does it. Why? Because he's just way better at controlling it, right? So you're going to be making more best guess and best case scenarios. And we're going to tie this into the skill piece of this conversation when we do that episode.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the skill. So as you become a more skilled golfer, your predictability of what's going to happen and how you're going to adjust becomes more important, right? And so you don't have to spend all day figuring all this stuff out. This is where finger dispersions come into play, and then making your best case, like having a good routine and, figuring out how you make slight adjustments for the last slope and wind or last slope and weather, and just play, right? It doesn't become overwhelming. It just becomes part of your process, right? And the better you get at golf, the better that prediction is going to be, and the more important your adjustments are going to be.
100%. Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think we said this before we hopped on, but if you're a level 1 golfer listening to this, what I'll tell you is that you'll probably get the most bang for your buck with strategy when it comes to putting, right? Predicting where am I going to aim this putter face and how much speed. Again, that's kind of a skill, but really the most conscious prediction we make in putting is really where am I going to aim this putter face and basically where do I want the ball to stop? Right. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck with strategy with putting, especially if you're a level 1 golfer. And that's why if you come take a putting lesson with me or with Eric, we're pretty much going to look at strategy first. That's the first thing we're going to look at. You might hear us call it green reading, right? So that is strategy. Really, it's a very conscious, you can literally say out loud, hey, this is where I'm going to start the golf ball. And I'd love for the ball to stop either around the hole or a little bit past it, right? So that's all very conscious. I would say that honestly, then from there, it's going to be aiming your dispersion because, again, as a level 1 golfer, you need to know kind of like, hey, how big is this dispersion? Because, again, the last thing we'd want for you as a level 1 golfer is to increase your shots to green because you're picking targets that you're not getting the benefit of your very average shots from, right? So as a level 1 golfer, can you just literally understand how big is my dispersion and where do I need to aim this so that all of these shots in my dispersion, again, 80-ish% of my shots, end up in play? And pretty much go through that to a T. You pretty much don't need to, even for a level 1 golfer, obviously we said that the decision tree is for every golfer. So yes, proximity and then fairway would be third. But then going even from approach play, same kind of stuff. It's okay to be aiming off the green with your approach play. For a level 1 golfer, you're going to be aiming off the green quite a bit. That's okay. You can have your absolute best shots be a little bit off the green, but that might also mean that a lot of average shots, kind of misses, are going to be on the green, and way fewer of those shots are going to be in penalty areas. And then for short game, it's do what you need to do, get the ball on the green. That's the number one goal. Mm-hmm. If you need to putt it, putt it. If you need to take a hybrid out and putt it with a hybrid, putt it with a hybrid. Do what you need to do. Again, as a level 1 golfer, proximity is kind of like a cherry on top. It's like a luxury item. It's kind of nice. Hey, that's great for the ball to end up close to the hole, but it's not the number one priority. It's getting the ball on the green. So yeah, just wanted to I wanted to real quick kind of run through because we're going to have some level 1 golfers listening. And then level 2, Obviously, you can go back and rewind and listen as we kind of work through that decision tree, but that's basically what it is. It's how big is your dispersion? How far down that decision tree can you go? And then are you making those kind of adjustments that we need to make?
Do you feel like level 2 is kind of where strategy kicks into higher gear,
Yeah,
I think?
agreed.
Because a lot of times you see some level, and again, this is just generalizations, but you see some level 2 golfers, or someone maybe your age, Robbie, that's getting into golf and played a couple years and they're pretty athletic.
I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
And they're just munching the ball and they're playing better. And when things are working, it's like they can shoot a pretty good score. Mm-hmm. And when they're off, they hit the ball all over the planet. And because their club head speed is kind of high, then or maybe is very high, their ability to not have disruptors off the tee is crazy. And then they're like on every par 5, whether there's a hazard or outer bound, whatever, they're just ripping it at the middle, ripping it right at the flag, rip it at every flag, and then just like taking on what comes. And then all of a sudden they look and they go, there's got to be a better way. I'm getting better at this. Now I need to find some refinement in my game, right? And that refinement is the thing that can really drive that strategy piece to understand in the moment how to play a better round of golf, but B, have a bigger understanding of what I need to work on to get to the next level, right? Because I think that's the beauty of when you really can visualize dispersion. We use this term. I mean, if it was a drinking game and it was
oh my gosh, someone is absolutely wasted right
now. I'm drinking water right now.
I'm drinking anything right now.
Come on, Robbie.
I know.
So point being, when you can visualize that all of a sudden, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I see the picture has become clear to me, right? And just holding your hand in front of you and figuring that out is wild, right? And then for a lot of people that have a competitive spirit, right, that drives them. They're like, I see what I need to do better. And as a story on this dispersion, I caddied in a Champions Tour qualifier this year, Monday qualifier, and I made notes on this one hole. I mean, to this day, like it just drives me nuts that I missed this, right? I made notes on this hole. It's a dogleg left, and then there's this big tree that guards the right side of the green, and you're ripping drive and hitting 8-iron in. It's not a short hole, right? It's not like you're hitting sand wedge over the tree. And in the practice round, I made a note, like, cannot miss right here. Like, cannot miss. There wasn't a hazard. There wasn't a bunker, actually. It was just hard pan, gnarly half-dormant Bermuda, and a cart path and a massive hill that was going to kick this ball into pine straw or whatever. And I made this note, like, cannot miss right. Cannot miss right, especially if it's a right hole location. It's a super steep slope. And we're in the fairway, kind of going through this, like where his ball was. We're making the wind adjustments. We're going through this process every single shot. And when we picked the target line, I just didn't move it enough left. Like the round was kind of, it was like the 11th hole. We're kind of like even or whatever. Like nothing had happened. And in your mind, I think he and I both were, I think, trying to get one in there with an 8 or a 9-iron, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we just needed to move those fingers left 20 feet, and we just didn't do it. And he misses like 4 yards right of the flag and made double bogey, like to a place where he couldn't get it on the green. Like it would have been an almost impossible shot to get it on the green. So you're putting yourself through this, and you just go through it again and again and again and again and again. And whether you're a level 4 player, whether you're level 1 player, level 2 is probably where a lot of this starts to come together. You make a decision and you want to do it over. And that's how data is. It's not one at a time. It's over and over and over. And I'm consistent and I'm disciplined and I'm in my process and I do it and I do it and I do it. And if I do that over a period of time, my scores will improve. In the moment, you might feel conservative, right? But that's okay, because it plays out in the short game. Like when you're saying putt around a bunker, that feels really weird. It feels weird to putt around a bunker and leave myself 25 feet for par. But if I don't have the shot to hit the lob wedge over the bunker to get it close, like
8 out of 10 times, right?
Yeah, 8 out of 10 times. So anyway, point being, you just want to be disciplined. Like that's where decision process comes in. Like it's something that you want to be disciplined to do over and over and over and over and over again, right? And where you stand in your round, right, doesn't matter.
No, it does not.
And that's where discipline gets really hard, right? Like whether you're playing great and you're like, I'm going to go right at this.
Yes.
We've all had those days,
Yep.
right? Where you feel like every ball's off the middle of the face and right at the flag. And then you get to that hole where all you can see is the flag and you hit it 2 yards right and you short side yourself in a bunker and you're like, I can't get this up and down. Like, what was I doing? Why am I here? That was a decision. That was a mental mistake, right? And that could really derail some rounds, right? So I think that being disciplined to just do it over and over again is such an important aspect of this decision-making strategy, right? And, I'm not great at it. I'm not that disciplined, right? But we're do better. Actually, I am pretty disciplined when it comes to this. That took years. I'm old now. It's easier to be disciplined than when I was 22 trying to play the best golf I could. So I think that comes into play for sure.
100%. And that's where I think like just convincing people that you're taking on the appropriate amount of risk. And I say this a lot, but it's like what we don't want you doing is, and I know you said it there and everyone knows what you mean, but we don't want you on the golf course saying, I cannot go here, or I cannot go there. And standing up on the tee just filled with all of this avoidance, because like you hear other people talk strategy and it's all about avoid this, avoid that. You can't have a 3-putt. You can't have a 2-chip. You can't have, and that's not how we want you to play golf. We want you going out there and going for it, but going for it with a mathematically correct amount of risk. So in that scenario, the error really for your player there was we needed to understand that where to move that dispersion was inside was actually on the green. Like I need to get my dispersion here. Like you said, hey, I was 4 yards right of the flag. Well, it sounded like it hit on the green that had some slope, and the slope took it down. So we need to clearly define like, hey, where is the margin of this penalty area actually? Right? So that, hey, it actually was a little bit further left than what we thought. The fact that like you hit the ball in the penalty area, who knows? That was the one out of, that could have been the 1 out of 5 that we're talking about, where just the face happened to be a little bit more right. But being able to diagnose this after the fact, well, it was not technically a skill error. It was a strategy error because
100%
we didn't realize where. So I guess my point is we want you going out here and attacking the golf course, quote unquote, with putting this dispersion in places where you want the ball to be, right?
Right.
We want you putting this, hey, I want you to hit it here. I would like to hit it here. But it's never, I have to hit it here, or I can't possibly hit it here, because you never know. Like, again, like think about like Rory playing in the Masters last year, like his shot on 13. I think if you pulled an entire room full of like golf strategy experts, they would all probably agree, like, you can't hit it in the penalty area there with a wedge. Can't do it, right? Like, quote unquote, not, well, what did he do? He knocked it in the penalty area. What else did he do? He won the tournament.
Right.
So you never know how this stuff is going to play out. If you start saying to yourself, like, I can't double the first hole. Well, let's actually think about it. Did you play a round that you're actually okay with where you did double the first hole? And most people can say, yes, I had a great round that I was really happy with where I tripled the first hole. Absolutely. Can you think of a round that you were really happy with where you had a 3-putt? Maybe 2 3-putts? Yeah, absolutely. So golf is a game of variability. Everyone knows you're going to have some error with this.
Yeah.
But it's like,
and that's where the process comes in, right?
Yes,
so if you stay in the process, then you're not so emotional.
Absolutely.
Can't do this,
you
can't do
stay
that.
in the game, and you keep staying present with every individual shot. And at the end, you see what happens. You add them up and you see how you fared. And that's kind of how we like to see it. So we're very big on pre-accepting the fact that you're going to have, again, 16% of your shots are going to be outside your dispersion. Hopefully they're in when the 16% of shots come, hopefully they're in a place where you can find the golf ball. Sometimes they're not. But our goal here is to choose a strategy to where if you hit the middle 84% of your shots, then you're going to be able to find the ball in play with a clear pass to the green, on the green if you're in short game, right? And you're going to be able to kind of, get the most out of your round. So
makes total sense. Well, Rob, anything else you'd like to add to this lovely discussion?
I don't think so. No, I think, we've said that we want to go through some mailbag and or some lessons from our lessons, but I mean, I'm looking at the clock right now. It's an hour 15. That was a big episode. I think we covered some of the score, some of the metrics in the beginning. So I think that was good, especially on this episode, to kind of go through that again first off. But yeah, as we move through it won't be an hour of level 1, 2, 3. Although I don't know, y'all can tell us as a listener if you enjoyed that, but a little more long-winded on that tonight. But I think it's good.
No worries. So what we'll do, maybe another good way to do it is maybe we can collect some questions related to
I like that.
To the topics.
Yeah, I like
right?
that.
So as folks listen through the series, you can send us questions. And if you had a question about this episode, you can email us at thegolfintervention@gmail.com. Put in the subject line, question for golf intervention. That would be great. That way we can sort through it very well. So if you had a question on strategy, so we could either start our next episode, by answering those questions, then go into it, or we may collect them and just do an episode just of questions. So we'll see. We're kind of loose.
I love that. No, I think that's a great idea. And our next episode will be on skill, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to have plenty of lessons from our lessons on this, I have a feeling. So very excited.
So I think that there's no question, we've said and said again that I think the misconception with golf improvement is it's all about swing. And what we would say is swing is important, 100%. But there's also skill and there's also strategy. And in that hierarchy, it's probably least invasive to work down that from strategy to skill to swing. I would say most impactful with the least amount of cost. And when you start to take on swing stuff, there can be a cost there. And we all know that. Everybody
100%.
knows that. Coaches know it, players know it, everybody understands. And so if we can work through skill and or strategy, they tend to be steps backwards, tend to not be taken as significantly in those. Hopefully they go straight forward. Like you said, with strategy, it's hard to have improve your strategy.
Hard to get worse by improving strategy.
Yeah, that doesn't
really typically happen. Yeah.
So thank you again, listener, for tuning in to the Golf Intervention Podcast. We've enjoyed our time, and we will be rolling out new episodes, hopefully weekly. Now we're in the rhythm, and we look forward to your questions. And thank you again for listening. Next time we talk about skill. Hope everyone has a great week. The sun is shining in Central Virginia. Hopefully everybody's finding some warm weather, and we can start to play some golf. What do you think, Rob?
Fired up. Let's do it.
Fired up. All right, everybody. Have a great evening.
Cheers.